All right, let's talk about something. Have you ever been in a room full of people, people you know, but you just feel completely on the outside looking in? It's a feeling a ton of us have had, but it's so hard to put a name to. Well, today we're going to dive deep into the architecture of that exact feeling. We're talking about rejection sensitivity. So let's just start with a question that might hit a little close to home. This one right here. Ever feel like you're never anyone's first choice? I mean, really think about that for a second. Is that just a passing thought for you? Or is it, more of a constant nagging whisper in the back of your mind? Okay, that first choice feeling, it's so much more than just being in a bad mood, right? It's this really complex, heavy emotional experience. So let's unpack what's really going on when we feel this way. Just picture it for a second. You're at a party, right? There's laughter, people are talking, but for you, it's like you're watching the whole thing on a screen, behind a thick pane of glass. You see it, but you can't feel it. That is the feeling we're digging into, that persistent, kind of gut-wrenching sense of being an outsider, no matter where you are or who you're with. And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's not about people actively disliking you. It's something way more subtle. It's this deep sense that you're just not essential, you know? It's that quiet, nagging fear that if you just vanished, the group would be totally fine. And maybe, just maybe, no one would even notice you were gone. So this really specific, really painful feeling, it's not just some random thing your brain made up. Turns out, psychology actually has a name for it. It's called rejection sensitivity. And trust me, understanding this concept is the key to unlocking this whole experience. So what is rejection sensitivity exactly? Well, it's not just being scared of rejection. It's this really powerful kind of three-part cycle. First, you're anxiously expecting rejection to happen, even when there's zero reason to. Then your brain starts perceiving it everywhere. You read it into every little ambiguous signal. And finally, you overreact, and the emotional hit is just huge, way out of proportion to what actually happened. Now listen up, because if any of this is starting to sound familiar, this next part is absolutely the most important thing to hear. This is not a personal flaw. It's not because you're too sensitive or too dramatic. It is literally about how your brain is wired. Think of it less like a flaw and more like a unique setting. And just knowing that, that's the first step to figuring out how to work with it. Okay, so we've talked about this different wiring, but what does that actually look like day to day? Let's pop the hood and take a look at what we mean by the hyper-aware brain. This right here shows you just how different the worlds can be. On the left, you've got your standard social perception. Pretty straightforward. But on the right, well, that's the world of the rejection-sensitive brain, where every single interaction feels like a high-stakes exam. A neutral face isn't just neutral. Your brain is scanning it for tiny micro-signs of disapproval. A delayed text, that's not just someone being busy. That's definitive proof they're losing interest. A friend who's a little quiet, oh no, they're obviously secretly mad at you. It's a world where every question mark is interpreted as a full stop. So here's a great way to think about it. Imagine your brain has a social radar system. We all have one, but yours? The sensitivity dial is cranked all the way up to 11. It's picking up on stuff, faint signals, tiny shifts in the atmosphere that other people's systems just completely miss. And this radar, it's not a bug in your system, it's actually a super old feature. It's designed to be a highly advanced early warning system. Think about our ancestors. Getting kicked out of the tribe was basically a death sentence, so this radar evolved to scan for any potential social threats. The problem is, in our modern world, sometimes it's just a little too good at its job. All right, so what happens when this super sensitive ancient radar picks up a potential threat in, 21st century life? Let's trace the chain reaction from one tiny social cue to a full-blown emotional storm. It almost always starts with something small. A text that gets left on read, a weird look from a coworker, anything ambiguous. But for the hyper-aware brain, that's a red alert. A threat is perceived and bam, the emotional floodgates just burst open. Anxiety, defensiveness, fear, it all comes rushing in. And here's the really cruel twist. That reaction, that very behavior can end up confusing people and pushing them away, creating the exact outcome you were so terrified of in the first place. But, and this is the kicker, this is what makes it so confusing and powerful, sometimes the radar is right.
It can pick up on a subtle shift in a relationship, a tiny bit of distance long before anyone else is even aware of it. And it's that occasional, shocking accuracy that makes the system so hard to doubt, even when you suspect it might be a false alarm.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, right? We've looked at the architecture. Now what? What's the solution? How can we start to reframe this whole thing and maybe, just maybe, learn how to turn this sensitivity from a source of pain into a source of strength? And here's the really good news. This is not a life sentence. It's a sensitivity, not a destiny. Honestly, the most powerful thing you can do is just understand the mechanism. The moment you recognize that there's a neurological reason for these intense feelings, you can stop blaming yourself and start managing the system. You can actually learn to recalibrate that social radar and start taking back the controls. So the goal isn't to shut the radar off. You can't, and you probably wouldn't want to. The goal is to become a more skilled operator of the radar. It's about creating just a tiny bit of space, a little pause between the ping on the radar and your reaction. And in that pause, you can ask yourself one simple question. Okay, what's another possible explanation for this? That little moment of curiosity is everything. It's how you start interpreting the signals more wisely and turn what was a source of pain into a source of real empathy and intuition. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If your brain is this incredibly powerful instrument, so finely tuned to sense distance, couldn't it also be trained to better sense connection? What if you could learn to use this amazing sensitivity not just to shield yourself from pain, but to actually open yourself up to more joy? It's a pretty powerful question to consider. Thanks for exploring this with me.